Welcome to the Thriving Outside the Box podcast. Join me, Dr. Kimberly Grocher, a licensed psychotherapist, executive coach, and yoga and mindfulness meditation teacher, as I shed light on the stories of leaders and entrepreneurs across industries who have not only dared to create their own path in their careers, businesses, and lives, but found a way to do it while thriving mentally, physically, and spiritually. I hope you walk away with the inspiration to do the same. Hi, I'm Dr. Kimberly Grocher. I'm your host of the Thriving Outside the Box podcast, and I'm really happy today to be talking to Dr. Rich Furman. I'm going to let you tell your titles, what you do, and how you are living outside the box. Okay.
I just go by Rich, and I'm a professor emeritus at the University of Washington, Tacoma. I was a professor of social work for almost 25 years. And now I have a coaching practice where I coach 90% of academics, but I have other folks as well. I tend to focus on PhDs and high achieving folks. But I originally became known as someone that helps academics write and publish. And then I expounded to just how people can be productive, but in a healthy, sustainable way. And that's what I do. And so I retired from the faculty in December so I could do this full time. It got busy enough that I really had to make a choice, and the choice was pretty obvious. This is just my passion. So I'm just grateful to be here to be able to talk to you about it. And anything else you want to ask about?
Thank you, Rich. I'm so excited to have you here to glean some of your insights, hear more about your journey and your story, because I know in the time that I've known you, like working with you was tremendous. So I actually met Rich on academic Twitter a few years ago because you used to post about writing and things of that nature and things going on in the profession. And I noticed that you had a MFA, which I haven't seen a lot of crossover between social workers and degrees in like arts and things like that. So that was very interesting to me. And I think we connected, and you actually helped me tremendously, coached me through my dissertation process.
Yeah, you were easy. You were out.
It was not an easy time in my life, but working with you really helped me to continue and get it done and learn to love writing.
Yeah. When I hear that, that's the ultimate. I say at the very least, I want people to learn to have writing be cognitively benign. I can usually almost guarantee that. Writing doesn't have to be the scary, emotionally taxing, draining demon that we sometimes make it out to be. So terrific.
Rich, tell me how you see either your life, your professional life, your journey, whatever, how you see yourself outside of the box.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I've always been a little outside the box, right? As a teenager, I was into punk rock. I was always into alternative culture. As a teen, I was involved in activism against the wars in Central America in the 80s and the dictatorships in Central America. And so I've always just been a little different. But as an academic, I'll give you my story briefly. So I'm a social worker by training. And so my work was as a clinical social worker. I worked as a therapist in the Puerto Rican community. I worked with Philadelphia cops and firemen in a group practice. Was an administrator of kids' mental health programs. And then I decided to do my doctorate to become a faculty. I liked to write, and the idea of teaching was exciting. And so when I got my doctorate, I moved to Colorado State. It was my first tenure track faculty job. And over dinner one day with our dear friends that kind of took us in, 3 different women were the assistant professors, like I was. And over dinner, they were lamenting that none of them were going to get tenure because they weren't writing and publishing. And it just was shocking to me that these amazing, brilliant women really weren't ever given the tools and skills that they needed. The assumption is that you can be productive because you got through an undergraduate degree and master's and you know how to write, and therefore you need to also be productive. And That is not a good assumption. So at that point, I wanted to help my buddies, and it certainly was good for me too, since I was on the tenure track and had to write and publish. Read everything was out there pretty much on writing productivity and faculty development. And there wasn't as much at that time. This is in 2000, and started sharing some ideas with my friends, and they started writing. And so I got very excited. And that started what has been a 25-year history into thinking about how people write and how people produce in a healthy, sustainable way. So fast forward a little bit, I went on to the University of Nebraska, Omaha, where that was an explicit part of my position. I wrote a book on academic writing that came out a few years later. And then I was doing a training for the NCFDT, which does diversity and faculty development. And the CEO on a video call asked if I did this professionally. And I looked at her like a confused puppy dog and said, "What is this and what is professionally?" And she said, "Do you coach academics on mental health and wellness and productivity and writing and all the stuff you were talking about us?" And I started crying, like not just tearing, I started bawling because someone told me what my life mission was going to be. And one, I didn't know I was looking for a new life mission, or two, that such a thing existed, because it really was the perfect amalgamation of my skills as an academic, as a scholar, as a writer, as someone who does therapy, all in one, you know. So fast forward, I started a coaching practice at that time 16 years ago. And then in December, I decided to do it full time. And I was thinking about it for a few years. Well, actually, I decided a year before. My sister was very sick with brain cancer. And I just realized just how we all say how short life is. And then there's moments that really tell us and show us and teach us how short life is. And that was my moment. So I decided I was going to retire and do this full time. And so, this is pretty outside the box in that I don't think there's too many people. There are people who do academic coaching, but I think my skill set's a little unique. I am a creative writer. I have an MFA in creative nonfiction. I've done a lot of poetry. I've been a productive scholar myself, and I have clinical skills. And I work really hard at also being happy and healthy and whole. And so I took this shot because life is short. And so now, I think it's pretty outside the box to just decide that I'm just going to be as happy as I can and do what makes me happy. And so that's how I kind of came to this moment in my work.
Fantastic. There are a couple of things that I see as outside the box for you in addition to this journey, and you tell me if that's the case. So for all of us who have been in academia and have been in research and have had to be productive and things like that, like you're talking about, right? I think finding your research interests, especially to me in social work, which is still very traditional in a lot of ways in terms of the topics and the areas and things like that. I was always interested in the fact that you really kind of created your own path when it came to your research interests. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think if I'm known for anything, I've had a few interests over my careers, but a lot of my work is situated on the boundary between the expressive and the creative arts and qualitative research methods, specifically using the poetry as a tool to help us elucidate research findings, to serve as a container. So I've utilized creative structures and forms to help give people's stories more life and a more emotional resonance and power, using something called the research poem. So I guess I wasn't certainly the inventor of it, but a couple of people have recently called me the godfather of poetry as research. And so that's been a lot of my area of research. My other area which has become increasingly important now, but I used to do a lot of work on the criminalization of immigration in social work, really before most social work faculty or researchers were really looking at that. That was really more the domain of some other more academic disciplines, and putting into social work, I think, was a unique contribution of mine that I'm pretty proud of.
Was there any backlash or obstacles to leaning into those areas of research when you did? And if so, what was that? And also, were there people or things or resources that helped you go ahead and pursue those, knowing that they were kind of outside of the norm?
Great question. And I kind of got by because I was really productive. And productivity for me has always been about staying in process, which is something else I think makes me unique as a coach. Or I like to joke and tell people I don't have goals. Not really. no, at least not on a daily basis. I have processes. And so because I worked for a long time on refining my processes and really staying in process and being in the moment and refining tools, I was paradoxically very productive. And that productivity allowed me to do things outside the box because I just numerically had enough that people left me alone. But there certainly was pushback in the sense of when I was on the job market, there were times where people would say, yeah, we really liked you and thought you were interesting, but we didn't know what to make of the social worker that writes poetry and does poetry stuff. And so it wasn't very visible. And it took me actually a while to be able to tell that story of how it's relevant to social work and how it's relevant to qualitative research. And then the work around the criminalization of immigration comes from a very long history of advocacy around issues in Central America against the dirty wars in Central America and advocacy starting as a teen. So that's been a lifelong journey, and it just felt ethically that this was in many ways one of the human rights violations of our time, and social work was largely ignoring it. So I did some scholarship around that, specifically several edited books that I'm proud of that are they're fun.
Awesome. What are the titles of those books?
The Immigrant Other, and then Detaining the Immigrant Other, and then one called The Criminalization of Immigration. So the first two focus on people's lived experience and stories of immigration being criminalized, one transnationally around the world, and the other one focusing on immigration detention.
So relevant to today. And I hope that everybody out there is thinking about this and can lean into the work that you have created to really see the history of like how we got here, right? Because like you said, this is not new. This has been happening for a long time. And it's just that now it's more mainstream because it's being picked up by the media. But this has been going on for a long time.
For a long time. And it's reached draconian levels under the present administration, but all administrations have been implicated in this. And it's accelerated since the 1970s, where our borders were far more open. And the paradox is when we had more open borders, people could go back. They would come to work, they would leave. And now, because the borders have become more militarized, more criminalized, and dangerous, people haven't been able to go back. So we've actually, the policies that have been intended to keep our borders shut have actually made our borders more porous and diffuse, and have created crime and violence at the borders by making it more difficult to get in, thus the transnational gangs and maras and such. So
we're going to have to do another podcast episode about that because I know I'm interested in that. And I think there's so much knowledge and wisdom in that. But I want to go back to something else you said when you started to answer this question. And that was talking about being in process and not having goals.
So when we're talking about writing, for example, usually when people are in graduate school or after, or just if people are attempting to write anyways, they try to motivate through goals and deadlines, right? That this week I will do X and this is my deadline. And functionally, that's using anxiety as a motivation tool. Think about it. We're using a mental health disorder as a tool of motivation. Not very healthy. When we utilize anxiety, people usually just binge right at the end. They're usually like, will just not persist and then just get it done, or they won't persist at all. So in lieu of this, I've developed writing habits and tools and processes, whereas the whole goal is to get people to specific, healthy, sustainably length and constructed writing sessions, having healthy rituals to enter the session well, and use some tools that make writing more efficient to just be in process in the moment. Because it doesn't matter if I have a goal or not, that if I'm focused on the task at hand and I'm fully in the moment, I can't make myself faster than I would be otherwise. So if we use these tools to help people stay in process, then we don't have to have anxiety and stress. And people are more likely to be increasingly productive because they're not going to miss their writing sessions because they're feeling freaked out. So it's designed to really have writing be healthy, sustainable, congruent with good mental health and, God forbid, happiness, but also productivity. So folks I work with are usually faculty in research universities, and they need to be productive. And so the great paradox is by letting go of goals and focusing on tinkering with the process and really maximizing what people do, then people are both more productive and just have better mental health.
How do you think that also applies to life outside of writing?
It applies to many, many things. I mean, think of any task we have. Stressing about a task doesn't make us perform the task better. A touch of stress is good. But your talents and your skills and your brilliance and your amazingness moving through time and space is what gets cool things happening in the world. Goals and deadlines are just supposed to get you to do them. And why is that the only tool we have? So if we kind of create healthy processes for whatever people are doing, whether it's playing music or dancing salsa or whatever it is they wish to do, be an awesome, amazing coach and therapist like you, doing this podcast, it's actually doing the work and your talents and skills that gets things done. It's not goals and deadlines. And it's hard for people to accept this. It's one of the first things that when I work with people, we have to unpack a whole lifetime of internalizing the dictates of corporate capitalism, which is, I must make more widgets, I must do it now, here are the goals. And again, the paradox is people usually shatter their goals or really do amazing things that they wish with their life by letting go of the goals and do so in a happier, healthier, more sustainable way.
I always loved your approach when it came to specifically talking about writing now, but I think this also applies to, like you said, other things in life, this idea of like healthy rituals. So what do those look like?
Yeah. So the way I see rituals for productivity, writing, and this could be other things, they want to do several things. We want to create habit from them, headspace, and meaning. And each of those actually are evidence-based approach to that we can use, 3 evidence-based approaches to creating rituals that work for us. Habit means over time that we're just going to do our ritual the same way. Headspace is things that we do to create a good psychological space for ourselves, whether it's in the realm of mindfulness or meditation or positive self-talk. I'm a big believer in self-talk to help us coach ourselves through difficult situations or to improve our performance. And then something for meaning. There's research that shows if we have that meaningful objects and meaningful things actually create more consistency. So for example, my writing ritual is super, super easy. First thing I do is I come to my writing chair and I put a little blanket on me, and then I do a 2-minute meditation to get to 0. Then I have a high-tech tool called a sticky note where I have my entry point where I left off the last one and having a very clear sentence that I read, because if my brain has a sentence and my writing session stopped there, I know what the next sentence is going to be in all likelihood if I write it again. So I do that. And I tell myself how lucky I am to write because I feel that. And I've done this every day for about 26 years. That's just an example. Very short, creates meaning for me, good sense of headspace. I do it the same way. These are the kind of rituals that we can do for a lot of performance, not just writing. But creating our own rituals that allow us to just get into a good space and be very consistent is super valuable.
So I think this is a nice segue into talking about your wellness practices, right? And so I want us to talk about your personal wellness practices, but can you also say something, if this resonates, about writing outside of academia? Like, do you feel like there are benefits to writing for people in general?
Oh, yeah. Writing is a method of inquiry. Writing is actually is one of the ways we think. It's not we think and then we write. It's writing is actually a process that helps us think. And so that's one of the powers of journaling or different kinds of writing practices that help us uncover our thinking and our creativity. And this doesn't have to take a really long time. We can do short free writes, for example, of 5 minutes. That's all it really can take. It takes sometimes. Set a timer and then go and then write without judgment, without evaluation, no spell checking, no editing. We're just going to throw it away, or at least metaphorically throw it away. So that way you don't censor. And that can uncover a lot of our deeper thoughts, our creativity, ideas that we want to play with. And so that's one wonderful use of writing outside of, just a use of writing or a function of writing. Another one is just for our own mental health and well-being. The poet Charles Bukowski talked about writing being the ultimate psychiatrist, using writing as a mental health practice and being able to interrogate, to think through, to evaluate our thinking, making sure our thinking is kind of reality-based and challenge thinking that isn't serving us well. A place both to honor our feelings that are healthy and to explore things that are probably problematic. And then writing in and of itself is a fantastic creative outlet, right? So creative writing, I love creative writing. I identify as an essayist at this point and love the essay form. And so writing has so many possibilities. And that's, one of my concerns today with some of the lack of reading these days and is that it really impacts our writing. You got to really, it might sound old school, but if you want to write well, you want to read well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you think about how reading and writing are connected to our thinking, and the way we think. So if we're not reading, if we're not writing, or we're afraid to write, or whatever the obstacle is, how are we processing? How are we thinking?
Right. And that's it. That's why I say writing is a method of inquiry. And so, making sure that we create space for that in our lives is super valuable. And it doesn't have to take as long as people sometimes think. Journaling and kind of other kinds of writing practices really can be in 5-minute bursts. And that timer is actually super helpful. Sometimes people will do as much in 5 minutes or 10 minutes as they would have sitting in their chair for several hours. Mm-hmm. Time serves as a bound, as a motivation.
You're making me miss writing. I have not written in several months because of different losses and things in my life, but I do the morning pages. So every morning I try to write at least 3 pages as described in The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. That has helped as part of my grieving process. And like you said, I'm able to really see just the act of it, just the getting it on the page and what comes up, things that I didn't even know I was thinking about, or things I didn't even know I was struggling with, or things that I want to celebrate, or getting those creative bursts down first thing in the morning, So I'll journey back to the other kinds of writing.
And I hear this a lot where people talk about the fundamental differences between academic writing and non-academic writing. I just don't get it. Maybe I'm not sharp enough or what, but the building block of writing is a sentence. And if you can write a sentence, then you can write academically. Mm-hmm. You can write a poem. You can write an essay. You can write a novel. You can write a memoir. Yeah, there's things to learn about each genre and each discipline. But the fundamental building block is a sentence. That's also one of the things to help demystify or kind of decatastrophize or normalize writing a little bit is being able to use the self-talk of, I can write a sentence. Can I write a sentence? Yes, I can write a sentence. All I have to do is write the next sentence. And if you write that sentence and you let go and you're in a psychologically good place, there's a significant likelihood that the next sentence is going to come. If we don't block it, if we don't edit and we don't spell check, if we've done the psychological work to make sure our thinking is in a good place and is serving us, it's just a sentence. People ask how I've written so many books, and I say, I don't know how to write a book. It's scary to write a book. I can write a sentence. I have chapters, and then I have sections and then subsections. And ultimately, I'm just writing a sentence within a subsection, within a container, that there's a paragraph or a page or a small box, and I can do that task. And so if I can do that task, then I can write a book. If I could write books, then anyone else could write books. So
where did you get your confidence?
My confidence is in the ability to write a sentence. Mm-hmm. My perspective around what the task is a little different. Can I ask Kim, can you write a sentence?
Yes.
Very good. So therefore, we know you can write a book. You just don't understand that connection yet. But to answer the question a different way is that I have worked hard in my life to give myself permission to fail and to embrace failure and to see that kind of fundamentally my job in life is to try things and probably or possibly fail or maybe fail And so therefore, what do I need confidence in if my fundamental job is to possibly fail and just to do the thing and try? So I don't have the confidence that I'm necessarily going to succeed at things. I have the confidence that I'm going to try and that I might fail. And of course, we know the paradox is that once I'm in the game, then it's my talents and my skills and my abilities, and everybody's talents and skills and abilities take over because my talents, skills, and abilities are moving through space. Your talents, skills, and abilities are moving through space and time. One doesn't have to, quote unquote, be confident that they're going to get something done. They just have to get out of their way and be willing to do the thing.
This goes back to being in process.
Yeah, being in process. And one of the ways of allowing ourselves to be in process is to fail. I salsa dance, and it's my kind of strange addiction and my little obsession in life. I'm about to go to Colombia tomorrow, where I'm going to have a 2-week vacation and then some weeks beyond as a digital nomad. But during my first 2 weeks vacation, I'm going to have 4 hours of three lessons a day, private salsa lessons, and dance at night. And one of the amazing things about salsa is every song I dance with someone, I'm going to fail. I'm going to make mistakes. That doesn't matter how good you are and how long you dance, that you're going to make mistakes, and that someone else's mistakes are going to then cause your mistakes, and vice versa. And you're going to make mistakes together. And if you believe that you need to be good, or you need to be wonderful, or I have to be perfect, and I have to impress people, and this person has to like me, and this person has to think I'm a great dancer, then you're going to be in your head, and you're going to be tight, and you're not going to have fun. And I don't like to do anything unless it's fun. But most centrally, you're not going to succeed. You're going to be too in your head about it. But because I'm willing to fail, and I know I'm going to make mistakes, and it's bring it on, bring on the failure, then I actually let go. And then my skills and my ability to connect with people, to dance, to be fun, to playful, to listen to the music can come through because I'm just in process, as opposed to in my head thinking about all these ways that it's awful and terrible that I'm disappointing other people or disappointing myself.
So tell us more about what you do to stay well, to be healthy, to have fun, all of that, because I know fun is a big part of your wellness.
Fun, yeah. I don't do much in life if it's not fun. I mean, of course, I have to clean my apartment, my house, my office, and other things, just like the next person. And I can't say I love that, but I just need to do things that are fun. So fun and play and joy for me are two things. There's the attitude that we can bring to everything in life. And in my coaching practice, I'm just myself. I'm just kind of be fun, loving, rich. And this is what you get. So it's about an attitude and a spirit that we have in our lives in general. But then there's things I do for fun. Salsa is I just love to dance and I love music. So I do that every day. I have my cardio salsa hours. That's what I do for exercise. Around some kettlebells in the middle of ones to get the resistance training in. So I do that. And then a few times a week, I go out with friends and dance salsa at socials. And so I have a good group of friends. I play music. I play ukulele, kind of jazz and punk rock ukulele of all things. I enjoy that. And I love to travel. So those are the main things. And I have a meditation practice. My meditation practice is very short. I do a 2-minute meditation between every client call and just little 2-minute meditations in life when I feel like I need one. So, and I find that's sufficient for me to get to center. So yeah, those are my non-negotiables. I'm going to do those in life no matter what happens.
Awesome. Do you have your ukulele at hand?
There's always a ukulele not far away.
Can you strum a little something?
Oh my. All right. You said podcast. You didn't say concert. But because you're you and I adore you, I will.
Thanks.
Those falling leaves float past my window. Those autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, summer kisses, sunburnt hair I used to hold. But since you went away, those days grow long. Now I hear old winter song. but I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Rich. I have enjoyed talking to you, and I know that anybody who listens is going to get so many just valuable insights into everything you share, from your own wellness practices. I always love you talking about just being in process and letting go of the goals. I know that has helped me so much in my own life. And then just kind of like the attitude of fun and joy and lightness and bringing that to everything that you do.
Thank you for having me. You're just a real special human being. And it's so just wonderful knowing you have your podcast now and that you're sharing yourself so frequently with so many other people. And that just makes me happy to know that you're out there doing your thing in the world. So thank you for having me, and just thank you for being awesome. You are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So join us next time. Check out the show notes. You will find out how to contact Rich and how to get access to his content, his website. And if you are interested in writing, maybe learning more about his programs. All right. Have a great day.